Before the sermons, before the crowds, before the parables that would echo for centuries, there was movement, not symbolic movement, not spiritual metaphor. Physical movement. A human body walking across stone, dust, and uneven ground, day after day, mile after mile, under an unforgiving sun and cold night skies. This is hidden biblical history. And today we are not following miracles or theology. We are following something far more overlooked and far more demanding. The road. For roughly 3 years, between 27 and 30 AD, Jesus of Nazareth lived in motion. His ministry did not unfold from a fixed center of power. It unfolded at walking speed, from the green hills of Galilee to the dry expanses of Judea, from river valleys to elevated ridgelines, from fishing villages to fortified cities. The Gospels mention more than 30 distinct locations visited during this period: Capernaum, Bethsaida, Chorazin, Nain, Cana, Tyre, Sidon, Caesarea Philippi, Jericho, Bethany, Emmaus, Jerusalem, names we recognize. But between every name, there's distance. And distance has weight. Modern readers often skip over the journeys. The text moves from place to place in a single line. But for the people who walked those roads, nothing about travel was quick, comfortable, or incidental. Historical estimates suggest that during those 3 years, Jesus may have walked between 3,000 and 5,000 kilometers on foot. That number increases when accounting for repeated journeys to Jerusalem for the major pilgrimage festivals, Passover, Pentecost, and Tabernacles, 3 times a year. Every year. Each journey from Galilee to Jerusalem required between 120 and 150 kilometers. Depending on the route, there were no animals reserved for him, no carts, no inns with guaranteed shelter. He walked, and with him walked 12 men who had abandoned their livelihoods, their homes, and their security, following someone who promised no fixed destination. The Gospel of Luke records a statement often read metaphorically: "The Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." But this was not poetry. It was logistics, and that reality shaped everything that followed. This is where the journey truly begins. In the first century, the day began with light. There was no alternative. Traveling after sunset meant broken ankles, disorientation, or worse. Oil lamps were precious and impractical outdoors. Roads were unmarked. Wildlife and bandits were real threats. Jesus and his followers rose before dawn. The Gospel of Mark notes that Jesus often withdrew to pray very early in the morning, while it was still dark. That detail hints at a rhythm: prayer first, movement second. A trained walker in the ancient world could cover 25 to 30 kilometers per day under ideal conditions. But ideal conditions were rare. Galilee's terrain, though fertile, is broken by rolling hills and rocky outcrops. The ground, a mix of dirt, limestone, and basalt, punished the feet with every step. Footwear offered minimal protection. Leather soles tied with straps. No cushioning, no arch support. No shortcuts. Then there was the climate. Spring and autumn offered tolerable temperatures, but summer, especially in the Jordan Valley, was brutal. Temperatures could exceed 40 Celsius. Sweat evaporated instantly. Throats dried. Water became the dominant concern of the day. Wells existed along major routes, but not all were reliable. Some ran dry. Others were controlled by villages suspicious of outsiders. The encounter between Jesus and the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well reflects this reality. Water access was never guaranteed. Food was equally minimal. Bread, almost always bread. Barley loaves baked on heated stones, dense, durable, calorie-rich. Occasionally goat cheese wrapped in leaves. Dried figs, olives, dates when available. A modern comparison helps clarify the strain. A group walking these distances daily would burn 3,500 to 4,000 calories, yet often survived on little more than bread and fruit. Sustained exhaustion was built into the routine. The midday pause was brief. Shade under a tree, a rock outcrop, perhaps an hour. Then movement resumed. The goal was simple: reach a safe location before nightfall. Kilometer by kilometer, the message advanced at the pace of human feet. Walking was not only exhausting, it was dangerous. The roads of Galilee, Judea, and Samaria were not secure. The parable of the Good Samaritan is rooted in reality, not allegory. The road between Jerusalem and Jericho, roughly 30 kilometers, descended through narrow ravines known for ambushes, a group without weapons, without wealth, without escort. Jesus and the 12 fit that profile perfectly. Winter brought additional threats. Heavy rains turned paths into mud channels. Night temperatures near Jerusalem dropped close to 5°C. Exposure was not uncomfortable. It was lethal. Where did they sleep? Sometimes in the homes of supporters, Peter in Capernaum, Martha and Mary in Bethany, Zacchaeus in Jericho. But those were exceptions. Most nights, the sky was the roof, a shallow cave, a stone wall, the space between rocks, fires when fuel was available, bodies close together for warmth. Sleep was light. Someone always listened. Jackals in the distance, footsteps on gravel, wind shifting through dry grass. And at dawn, movement again. Feet blistered, blisters opened, infections followed. Muscles stiffened overnight and took kilometers to loosen. Hunger lingered constantly, not starvation, but never enough. Jesus knew that emptiness. The Gospels record his 40-day fast before the ministry began. But even afterward, abundance was rare. The feeding of the 5,000 reveals not only a miracle, but the reality that thousands had followed him into remote terrain without adequate provisions. He walked ahead. Always ahead. Dry throat, worn feet, a body asking for rest. While villages waited, crowds gathered, and time narrowed. Every step was deliberate. Every day a cost. And yet, he never stopped. 3 years, thousands of kilometers, dozens of settlements, mountains, shorelines, synagogues, crossroads. The ministry of Jesus was not static. It was mobile. His teaching rhythm followed the rhythm of travel. Parables were not delivered from elevated platforms, but during rest, beneath fig trees, beside wells. As the sun fell over Galilee's hills, the imagery came from what surrounded them. Seeds scattered that morning, birds overhead, wildflowers along the path. The message was inseparable from the body that carried it. A teacher who felt hunger when his followers felt hunger, cold when they felt cold, pain when they felt pain. When he spoke of carrying a cross, his listeners already understood weight. They had walked with him. The disciples did not learn in classrooms. They learned by watching who he stopped for, who he avoided, which regions he chose to cross, even Samaria, and which meals he accepted in villages that rejected him. The road was the classroom. Dust was the parchment. When he finally entered Jerusalem for the last time, his body already knew the cost of movement. He had walked those roads before, many times. And he knew this journey would end differently. But that is another story. What remains is the image of a man who chose to walk, who could have spoken from power centers, and instead chose worn sandals and open roads. He chose fatigue, exposure, vulnerability. He chose to be fully human, to speak to humans. If this journey has revealed something you had never considered before, if you felt the distance, the terrain, the cost beneath your own feet, subscribe to Hidden Biblical History. Here, we explore the physical world behind the texts, the landscapes, the movement, and the human realities that shaped history. Each episode is a journey. Thank you for walking with us.